So I've just filmed and uploaded a keys to victory, tactics and final prediction video for David Hay and Tony Bellew. If that's of interest, please check it out. It's up on the channel. Purpose of this video, exactly the same agenda but for a different fight. Probably for a far better fight. Maybe a fight that's flown under the radar a bit bizarrely in the UK, as I think this is a truly fantastic fight. One of the most competitive matchups out there, and a fight that I've genuinely struggled to pick a winner in from the moment it was first discussed. Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman. Let's start with some keys to victory. Let's start with the Keith Thurman side. If I was Keith Thurman, I'd be looking to use my natural advantages against Danny Garcia. I believe Keith Thurman is a bigger guy. I believe Keith Thurman is a faster guy. I believe Keith Thurman is probably more adept at boxing from the outside and a bit more explosive. In other words, if I was Keith Thurman, I'd be looking to get in, get your work off and get out. You're the bigger puncher, especially at 147 pounds. I'd be looking to attack, score, get some of those crisp, clean scoring punches going from range. You know, when Keith Thurman puts punches together, they're very eye-catching. They're going to get the judges giving rounds to Keith Thurman. But I'd be aware of the threat of Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, I genuinely believe to be a step up from Sean Porter, who is Keith Thurman's best win to date. I think Danny Garcia is a dangerous guy. You know, Dwyer often describes him as a mid-range hooker. And certainly if you get into mid-range and start hooking with Danny Garcia, you're in dangerous waters. Keith Thurman, if he's got a vulnerability, he's very big at the weight. He probably has to cut a lot of weight to get down to 147 pounds. Could he potentially be hurt to the body? We did see that against Luis Collazo, albeit he didn't, go down and get stopped and that sort of thing. But we did see him potentially being vulnerable. And Danny Garcia is the kind of guy who could expose that. So if I was Keith Thurman, I'd be looking to use my athletic advantages. I'd be looking to use my range advantage. And I'd be dancing around outside of the pocket, getting work off, scoring punches behind the jab from outside, and looking to keep distance and looking to build up an early lead behind my boxing. Danny Garcia is someone you've got to give an immense amount of credit to. I know Danny Garcia is someone who is not universally liked because the perception is he's had a large majority of gift decisions. But let's have it right. For a guy who's still early to middle stages of his career, really, Garcia's not an old guy. He's got a fantastic resume. He's beaten some great names in boxing. And I genuinely believe Garcia's one of those guys who looks imminently beatable when you watch him on TV, but clearly in the ring, he's a much more complex operator, and he's not quite as easy to beat as people out there think he is. Conversely, if I was looking to advise Danny Garcia, I'd be looking at bodywork really for Keith Thurman. I do believe Thurman is vulnerable to bodywork. The Luis Collazo fight was a clear example of that, and I just think Thurman's got such a big frame. He's a powerful guy. Sucking his frame down to 147 for a fight cannot be good for him in the long run. And if I was Danny Garcia, I'd be looking to bank work to his body in that sense. I'd also be looking to try and walk him down and try and punch with him. Almost like he did against Amir Khan, where maybe he lost some of the early rounds due to being up against a longer range boxer, but he kept building the pressure. Keith Thurman is going to have natural advantages at range in this fight. He is. But if Danny Garcia can bring the fight into more of a scrap, if he can bring the fight into the pocket, Garcia's seemingly had an excellent chin in his career to date. And I think Keith Thurman, whilst he did better than I expected against Sean Porter, the rounds where Porter was really able to build the pressure, and the rounds where Porter was really able to suck the fight into a bit of a phone booth scrap, were the rounds potentially that Porter was picking up on the scorecards. So, I think like a lot of fights in boxing, this is a clash of styles. You've got Thurman maybe as the more natural boxer, the more natural athlete, the more natural long-range guy. You've got Garcia as the guy who's going to want the fight in the pocket, who's going to be brawling, mauling, using work to the body, etc. Very interesting fight. Two extremely high-class operators, and a real solid case that the winner of this fight is the number one fighter at 147 pounds. I believe from a resume perspective, the only fighter who you could possibly pick above the winner of this fight on Sunday morning will be Manny Pacquiao, and that kind of depends how you rate Manny Pacquiao. Do you still think he's at the top of the division, or some people think he's faded and in the autumn of his career? It kind of depends how you view the Manny Pacquiao debate. But regardless, the winner of this fight for me, based on resume, is the number one, number two in the division. It's a truly, truly enthralling fight. Now, onto my prediction. This is a fight I've changed my mind on several times. I've actually got a very strong head and a very strong heart reaction here. And this is only the second time since I've been doing this channel that I've felt that, when my head's wanted me to go for one guy and my heart's wanted me to go for another. The first time was when Carl Frampton fought Scott Quigg. My heart was telling me Scott Quigg is going to win this fight. My heart was telling me Quigg is going to have the heart, the determination, the grit to grind down Carl Frampton and to break Carl Frampton's spirit. But I picked Carl Frampton, and as you guys know, Carl Frampton won that fight. So I made the right pick based on my head, looking at the advantages Carl Frampton enjoyed and having rewatched tape of both guys, just thinking that if Carl Frampton boxed smart, boxed to instructions and used his skills, he'd probably have the edge. I'm actually in a not dissimilar position here. My heart is really wanting me to pick Danny Garcia. I believe Garcia is the far more battle-tested operator. I believe it's going to take a lot to beat Danny Garcia. I think he's one of life's winners. And I think he's not going to be an easy man. I think he's going to be a harder opponent than most people actually realise in this fight. I also think the style he brings is very underrated. It's not crisp, it's not clean, it's not always pretty, it's not always devastating, but I believe he's a very effective fighter and more effective in ring than he appears on TV. So Danny Garcia is a guy who I've got a lot of respect for. Keith Thurman, if he's got weaknesses, I believe the kind of fighter who's going to be able to expose them is a guy like Danny Garcia. Sean Porter, he had success, but Porter is very, very raw in there. He lacks the discipline and education of a truly elite fighter. And I believe Danny Garcia is a truly elite fighter. Garcia may not be as good at 147 pounds as he was at 140 pounds. We'll have to see. So I'm not necessarily saying Garcia represents the elite at 147 just yet, but he does represent an elite fighter. And I think it's going to be a very, very tough fight for Keith Thurman this. My heart is really wanting me to pick with Danny Garcia. My head is wanting me to pick with Keith Thurman. Boxing is not a game of top trumps. That's something that Ultratech Sports says a lot and that I've stolen off him. So shout out to Ultratech. But you look at these guys as if they were top trump cards. Thurman's the bigger guy. Thurman's the bigger puncher. Thurman's the better boxer. Thurman's the faster guy. Thurman might be the better mover. And these fights are not fought on paper. So the top trumps attributes element doesn't always work out. It's a game of styles. But the difference in attributes between these two is vast. And if Keith Thurman can follow a game to instruction, if Keith Thurman can remain disciplined, and if he can implement his style and his will on Danny Garcia, mathematically I believe he should win this fight. He should look at the success that guys like Ashley Fairfane, Amir Khan, Lamont Peterson, he should look at the success that those guys have enjoyed against Danny Garcia. There was another guy at 140 whose name escapes me, Herrera. It's another blueprint fight, if you like. He should look at the success those guys have enjoyed against Danny Garcia and think that he can have the same success. And he's right if he implements his game plan. A lot is in favour in Keith Thurman's this fight. And whilst I believe there is a chance of Danny Garcia grinding him down and hurting him to the body and, taking away his range from him, fundamentally, if you have to make a balance of probabilities call, I believe Keith Thurman should win this fight with a greater than 50% chance. It's a very, very close call. But but I'm going to go with my head. I'm going to pick Keith Thurman. I picked Carl Frampton against Scott Quigg, and whilst this is a very different fight, I'm picking Keith Thurman for the same reasons. I believe that Keith Thurman will have prepared his utmost for this fight. I believe his trainer and his corner will give him the best instructions for this fight. And I believe Keith, at his very, very, very best, and he'll need to be at his very best, and utilising his full skill set, should just about have too much for Danny Garcia. If he moves, if he jabs, if he uses reins, if he gets his work off cleanly, I think he can establish a lead on the cards and hold on in a very, very close fight. I'm picking Keith Thurman. It's hurting me to do it. I want to pick Danny Garcia, but my head is telling me to pick Keith Thurman, and that's what I'm going to do. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you looking forward to this fight? Are you going to stay up to watch this fight? Who are you picking? How are you picking them to win? Will it go the distance? Leave your comments below, people. If you've enjoyed this video, please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. That helps me get more visibility to my stuff. If you haven't checked out my stuff before, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell, even if you are an existing subscriber. That means you'll get a little notification on your YouTube whenever I upload something new, so you can check out my latest stuff. Many thanks indeed for watching, people. As always, do appreciate it.